Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. Coming up in about 18 minutes or so, Robert Clancy will be talking to us about the importance of family. As we talk to Robert, who has launched his new TV show, and it's taking off like gangbusters. We'll find out more about that in about 20 minutes from now. Right now, we go to Thousand Oaks, California, my hometown. Well, not exactly, but that's where I live. And we are going to spend some time with our regular contributor, Dr. Greg Celaya. Dr. Celaya is a functional medicine specialist. He's a doctor of chiropractic, and he has more nutrition degrees than you can shake a stick at. Dr. Celaya, welcome back to Late Night Health.
Hey, Mark. It's good to talk to you and Daryl.
We're going to talk about the adrenals today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the adrenals. You know, they are so important. It's, you know, when a patient comes in, one of the first things I have to look at is the adrenals because they control everything. You know, there's so many hormones that come out of them, and one of the ones that you probably know is adrenaline, which is an epinephrine and norepinephrine. Mm-hmm. But the other ones that we really want to talk about are cortisol and DHEA. In addition to producing hormones, they control over 50 other hormones. So the adrenals are huge when it comes to our health. Aren't
the adrenals the fight or flight gland?
Yeah, that's the adrenaline, the epinephrine, norepinephrine that we were talking about. And those are understandable. What really are a problem, first off, is cortisol. And cortisol is a glucocorticosteroid, which, if you break down the word, gluco means it helps regulate blood sugar, and corticosteroid means it regulates stress and inflammation. And, you know, you want to see these, and it's, very important to make sure we understand.
Got it. Let's talk about stress and cortisol. I would think that with stress, we know that we have the fight or flight and the adrenaline. But that stress also releases cortisol, and cortisol isn't good. It puts tummy weight on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to go over symptoms of cortisol issues, we can be here for the entire time that we're talking, just mentioning different symptoms. And, you know, when I work with adrenals, I have to take into account the symptoms, but I'm not necessarily treating the symptoms. And so, you know, when looking at the adrenals and the hormones, we have to understand that blood sugar is really important. And the first thing to break down in a chronic issue, if our adrenals are consistently busy dealing with up and down blood sugars, and then you add sleep issues, and the adrenals function on a light cycle, the circadian rhythm, which we talked about before.
Right.
And then also you add chronic stress, you may have a problem with adrenal failure because they're being overdone. Right, our diet stinks, our stress is lousy, we're not getting sleep, and now we have adrenal problems which affect everything else.
You just mentioned several things. I mean, which leads me to ask things like, you know, stress, exercise, mental fatigue, physical fatigue, and what we eat. Does diet affect the adrenals?
It's absolutely huge. I mean, if your diet is pogo sticking up and down, right, because of decreased blood sugar, you're going to end up with cortisol issues. And then, in addition to that, you know, we haven't talked about DHEA, but it's a hormone that's a precursor to many hormones, many of the sex hormones. And they can be related to, you know, everything that the sex hormones do, in addition to aging, depression, bone health, and so on. So it's just so important to make sure we understand that. And also, if we have diets that are very low in cholesterol, which seems to be the case now, you have a lot of anti-cholesterol medications, these cholesterols are important as the building blocks of hormones. So we end up with other issues in addition to it by some of the medications we're taking.
I know that if you're on a cholesterol-lowering drug, you're supposed to, every couple of months, have liver tests because there have been studies that show that the liver can be impacted by these drugs.
And you know, I don't even know. We've talked so many times, but cholesterol is not the problem when it comes to cardiovascular disease. But that's a whole different talk. You know, cholesterol is everywhere in our body, and we need it, and our body makes most of it.
Our brain is cholesterol, is it not?
Absolutely, cholesterol and fat. Absolutely. So
the other day, you and I were talking, and you told me that we need, people in general should be eating more of the good fats. And
absolutely, sure.
And this has got to relate back to the adrenals.
Well, everything we've ever talked about relates to the adrenals. You know, what happens is when you have increased cortisol to deal with the stress, it can lead to decreased sex hormones, like we were mentioning the DHEA. And in the past, our stress was quick, right?
Right.
Way back when, you had to run away from an animal or this or that or whatever. Now your stress is chronic. The emotional, the financial, the chemical, the toxins you're exposed to, the metals, the chronic pain, the old injuries. And here again, low cholesterol. And so we're dealing with a lot of chronic stress issues that put a lot of stress on the adrenal glands.
The thing that is coming to my mind about DHEA is that there are supplements for DHEA. Do many people have a lower DHEA level, and are supplements a good thing to do?
Well, it's something that you have to be careful on what you're doing. I'm not going to suggest anybody go out there and just start taking DHEA. And most doctors test for adrenals in a way that is looking for disease, not necessarily function. And so when you look at that test, you're not going to necessarily see how the adrenals are functioning, and you're not going to understand even DHEA as well. We look at specific tests that help understand the function. And we can see what's going on with cortisol. We can see what's happening with blood sugar and DHEA. And then we work with an adrenal restorative program that can help them back on track in months instead of years if you don't do anything or you do the wrong thing.
Somebody gave me some DHEA a few years ago, and I noticed my hair, the texture of my hair changed. And so I stopped taking it. I didn't like it because of that was one of the reasons. The testing is important, and you do unique testing in that you're trying to find functionality of the body rather than looking for an illness or a problem. Would that be accurate?
Yes, we want to get to the root cause. And like I said, just to take DHEA when you don't need it can cause issues because it is a precursor hormone to all the rest of the hormones that we mentioned, right? A lot of the sex hormones and cortisol and cortisone, which you've heard of before, and pregnenolone and progesterone, and it just goes on. So we want to make sure if you do have a problem with a DHEA level, you want to make sure that you can supplement it on a short-term basis. Right? This is not meant long-term. This is meant for you to reduce your stress levels, whether it being emotional, financial, chemical, nutritional, and so on, while we're working with everything else, meaning sleep is another thing also.
I have not been sleeping well lately, and I mentioned that to you the other day, and I had a great night's sleep last night. I really did. Went to bed about 10 after 12, and I woke up at 5:40 this morning. I tried to go back to sleep for another half hour or so, didn't make it, but I got about 5.5 hours of sleep. Can people get by with 4 hours, 5 hours of sleep? What did you get last night, Daryl?
Probably about 3 or 4.
And that's on a regular basis.
Remember, Mark, we did a video. It's not
yes.
the hours of sleep, it's when you get them. So, if you look way back, right, we're supposed to go to sleep really when the sun goes down or shortly after. And we're not. We're staying up till 12 o'clock, right? That's way past where we should be. And we're bombarding ourselves with the blue light, which creates problems with our circadian rhythm,
right.
Which creates problems with cortisol and DHEA and everything else. And
so personal question. I know you're not you've told me, and I'm sharing this. You told me you're not a great sleeper.
But you know what? I do my best. I try to be in bed by 9 o'clock.
Oh my gosh.
And if I'm using anything like, for example, a cell phone, they have automatic darkening now on a lot of these cell phones. If it's a computer, there's a program called F.LUX, which helps change the color of the screen, so it eliminates the blue light where the problems lie.
I have it on all my computers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. So it does make a big difference. Your TVs, it is what it is.
Yeah, you can't do it to a TV. I've been turning the TV off and actually watching things on my iPad, which has the night. I've got it set. I think it goes on at 10 o'clock at night and off at 7. And what it does is it changes the blue light to an amber light, which is supposed to be easier to watch and to help with your sleep patterns.
Yeah, and that's a great way of doing it. So, you just want to make sure that we understand all the different stresses on our system, because the adrenals, they affect everything. It's like, for example, if somebody comes in with a thyroid problem, I can't even start looking at the thyroid until we fix adrenals, because the adrenals can affect conversion from the inactive to the active form of thyroid hormone. And so we may see issues even on lab testing that's going to tell me that there is an issue with adrenal problems affecting thyroid.
In radio, when you're doing a program such as ours, the operative word is test, and continue testing and try new things. And it seems to me that in your practice, it's test constantly to achieve great physical and mental health.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Sure, I can guess, but I'm going to tell you, there's a real problem with guessing. Guessing becomes an issue that, it's just a guess. So, so many people actually listen to radio shows even like this, and they're going to go home and they're going to start taking DHEA or, let's say, pregnenolone or some of the adaptogens, and they may not need them. And when you start dealing with these issues and taking a lot of this supplementation, it can be just as bad taking stuff you don't need as in taking stuff you do need.
Got it.
Or not having enough stuff, having enough, let's say, for example, DHA. So too much is a problem. Too little is an issue also.
Gotcha. And, of course, everybody's taking a lot of D now because historically, or I don't know if it's historically, but we're staying out of the sun, we're putting on sunblock, and we're not making enough vitamin D, and so there's a lot of supplementation of vitamin D going on. I know you and I have talked about that. I'm taking about 10 to 20,000 units every other day,
right?
Because the last time I had a blood test, which probably I'm due for, showed that I was deficient in vitamin D.
Right, and vitamin A, D, E, and K are fat soluble, and they're stored in the body. So if you don't take enough, you're going to have a problem. It's not like a normal, let's say, a vitamin B where you take it and urinate it out. It's stored. So
Right.
If you don't have enough, you have a problem, and if you have too much,
you'll have another problem too. Listen, everybody, if you go to drcelaya.com, that's drcelaya.com, look around, lots of great information. We've done some videos, Dr. Celaya and I, and he's offering a free consultation. So visit him and take him up on his offer of a free 15-minute consultation over the internet. Dr. Celaya, we will talk again soon. All right, coming back in just a moment or two, not Doctor, but Robert Clancy will be joining us, and we're going to be talking about family. Don't go away as Late Night Health continues.
Welcome to Guide to the Soul. This is Robert Clancy. The greatest bridge you can cross in life is one that connects your heart with another's. Giving of yourself is the ultimate gift of receiving. Love bridges the distance between any two hearts, even if that expanse is between here and heaven. This connection is unbreakable when it's built upon true, unconditional love. So why not love unconditionally? You're not giving up anything except your fears. Love is worth more than any one heart can ever hold. That's why it's meant to be shared. Isn't it time to use your heart to show the world how big infinity is?
For more inspiration from Robert Clancy, visit guidetothesoul.com or go to the Moments with Robert page on latenighthealth.com.
The stigma around mental health disorders and suicide is still very strong in our culture. It's an uncomfortable topic for many of us, and yet it's something we can't afford to ignore, according to Dan Shuck, the author of A Glass Half Empty or Half Full, a children's book for grown-ups. Last month, the CDC released a study that reports suicide rates went up more than 30% in half the states since 1999. A Glass Half Empty or Half Full, a children's book for grown-ups, takes a new approach to addressing mental illness. The book playfully explores pessimism versus optimism to find balance, manage stress, and enjoy life. The book uses humor to provide an opportunity to determine the fullness of our own glass and how to apply it to our daily lives. Donations from the proceeds of the book will be made to a Glass Half Question fundraising campaign for the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. A Glass Half Empty or Half Full, a children's book for grown-ups, is available from Amazon.com, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble. For more information, visit www.glasshalfquestion.com.